Okie dokie. You're watching now. I'm running late, so I just threw everything up pretty quick. So I haven't set my angles. You're the first to actually get a sneak peek at this little frame I have right here. And if you're watching on the rebroadcast, yeah, I don't know when people will join in. We're starting at a different time than normal, so that also affects the way some things work. But it's been an interesting week for me. I've been at Fantastic Fest this past week, so there we go. Now, because there's probably no reason to have this big black thing in front of me right now. It's probably a bit of a distraction. So, but yeah, I've been at Fantastic Fest. It's thrown my week all off. It meant I didn't do last week's live stream, and the week before that, I don't remember what happened, but I couldn't miss it today, even though my daughter's birthday is in a couple hours, and so I have to do this and then drive out to Georgetown, across town, for that. But busy season. It's a weird month because there's like no movies coming out. Like there's no, compared to summertime, I mean, just such a drop in the output of big franchise new releases, movies that would kind of spark discussions in my spheres. But at the same time, like life has not slowed down at all. I'm as busy as ever, so it's been quite interesting how it's all played out. Okay, a couple minutes in, don't see anyone. See what happens. Sorry, just waiting for people to join in. Time 11 a.m. Central. Okay, yeah, I was making sure I didn't get my time right, but I am here at the correct time. 4 people are watching right now, but I don't have any questions. There we go. First question has just come in. David Patterson, I just finished reading It about 2 weeks ago. Watched the miniseries, first movie, then It Chapter 2 1 week ago. So you are absolutely in It mode these days. So that is commitment right there. But It is way too long for me. I can't imagine giving that much time to a single story. I just can't do it. I move too quickly on my thoughts and my attention span, and enjoy things that are a little bit more bite-sized than that one. That huge book there. So. Papadocalypse. Were you looking forward to Sony Spider-Man movies at all? Sure. Of course I was. I don't at all. I don't even understand where people are coming from. That Sony's the worst. They can't make a good Spider-Man movie. Okay, well, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse came out less than a year ago. So less than a year ago, they made a movie that was widely received as a very good Spider-Man movie, a very good comic book movie, a very interesting movie. So within the last 12 months, the last 10 months, Sony put out a movie that was creative, that was interesting, where they let auteur directors kind of go do something weird and interesting within the last year. Then people say, well, yeah, but live action. Okay, well, technically they did put out these 2 movies that were with the MCU, co-produced, but they did allow that to happen. They made the decisions that enabled all that to happen. So you can't totally take away their credit on those ones. And so, okay, well, the last ones that they did, last 3 they did by themselves weren't very good. I think it's a little bit more complex than that, but sure, they had a little run there that wasn't good. But you can also say 15 years ago that they did some. So they did 2 live-action Spider-Man movies that are widely regarded as very good. One of them widely regarded as one of the best comic book movies of all time. The other one being an incredibly important, monumental film inside of the genre. So that's 2 that they did, but 15 years ago. Then they did one that was widely well-received within the last year, but animated. And then they have 2 within the last 2.5 years that are also well-received, but they were with other people. So there's a lot of caveats in there, but there's also a whole lot of stuff, Spider-Man movies that were good. So I just don't buy into the theory that Sony sucks and they can't do anything right. They do a lot of things wrong. They've done a lot of stupid things, but it's just internet internet toxicity, just feeding off each other and like ignoring all of the things that could indicate that they could do something good. I mean, like, all the rumors were that Tom Holland was going to return, that John Watts was going to return, that the writers were going to return. So you were going to have the entire creative team that gave us the last 2 Spider-Man movies, but we weren't going to have Kevin Feige producing. That's a big deal. That is a thing. And it wouldn't be connected to the MCU. That was, theoretically how this was going to play out. But you still had the writers, the directors, and the stars. So, I mean, it's just like the scenario where we kind of go, we ignore everything. The only thing that matters about the movies put out by in the last 2 years is that Kevin Feige produced them and they're part of the MCU. That's just such a weird perspective to me. If you liked the 2 movies, you have to give credit to Tom Holland, John Watts, and the writers. Like, they did stuff too. So, I mean, I would have been fine if, like, this stuff happens all the time, ins and outs and changes and everything, so I could have worked with it. David Patterson, I started reading The Shining on Wednesday. I'm listening to that one right now, actually, too. That's the one I'm going through in preparation for that. That one's a third the length of The Stand, or excuse me, not The Stand. Well, I think it's the third of the length of The Stand, too. It's the third of the length of It. So I was like, okay, this is Sean Chandler length right here. So I started going through that one, actually, before the film festival. And I will read Dr. Sleep after I finish, then I'll watch both the movies. That's my plan too. Hopefully I'll be able to listen to both of those books. Well, assuming I like The Shining. If I like The Shining, then I'll do Dr. Sleep. And then I'm going to watch the Shining miniseries as well, and then have hopefully a few videos that come out of all of that when Dr. Sleep comes out. Joey Fubert, fantastic effect. Looked really awesome, man. Really glad you had a good time. Yeah, it was a great little week. I went 2 years ago and it wasn't a good experience. It was pretty bad. There's a lot of things that kind of factor into that of, I still had my full-time job, and so that was kind of my vacation, and I'm an introvert, and so then I stepped into an environment that it's a very weird, like, I'm used to like Comic-Con culture, and this is not Comic-Con people. It's not like totally different group of people. Like, nobody recognizes me at Fantastic Fest. Like insider people that are promoting movies, and so they're trying to figure out what press people they recognize me. So it's like that's the people there that and then I'll kind of throw a little name dropping here. So I got to sit down. I watched VFW, the movie I reviewed yesterday. I watched that with Chris Stuckman. I was sitting next to him before the movie started. He was on an empty row. I was like, "Hey man, I know who you are. Can I sit next to you?" Absolutely. So we talked for 20-25 minutes. And he was mildly familiar with my content. But it's not like people were walking around recognizing me like at a Comic-Con. At a Comic-Con, pretty regularly, some people, hey, I've seen your videos. So last year, 2 years ago, I was pretty stressed out about it. And some stuff happened. It was a weird year. It's like infamous for being a really bad year where they made some bad choices that made a lot of people uncomfortable. Me being one of them put me in a situation I did not like. One of the secret screenings, and it was a little bit on my part because I didn't understand the difference between some of what their secret screenings were, but one of the secret screenings I went to, it was basically an unreleased Ed Wood dirty film. Like, so you just sit like in the theater like, wait, what just happened? And so it was a pretty bad experience overall of like all the way things played out for that. So this year was pretty great though. Everything about it was just, saw a lot of great movies, met a lot of wonderful people, and got to do some neat stuff with the red carpets. And then if you stick around at like the first opening weekend, it's just so jam-packed. But then as it kind of goes on longer, it thins out a little bit more, and people get more relaxed. They're more chill. They're less in just like in the zone of seeing movies. And so Rian Johnson, director of Last Jedi, Knives Out is what he was there for. He was just walking around for the last 3 days of the festival. I didn't see him the first 2 days of that, but then the last day, right from Knives Out came out, he did a red carpet, but it wasn't like a super formal red carpet. Had I known this, I actually would have gone on it myself. He talks to everyone that was there taking pictures, and he's just standing there talking to them. Then after the movie played and the festival was over, he was just standing in the lobby that did not have a lot of people. I mean, it had probably under 20 people in the lobby, and he's just taking selfies in front of the Knives Out poster and just chatting for 20 minutes while I'm there. And if I was a person to approach someone, if I had something to say to him, I would have. But I mean, that's the vibe of kind of Fantastic Fest of there's a lot of people, just movie directors, actors, just there chilling. So there you go. Anyway, I got a ton of questions. I'm behind on David Pedersen. 6 of my top 20 movies are Christopher Nolan, 3 of which are his Batman movies. I'm worried Tenet will be a little too good. Tenet will be a little too good. Yeah, he's great. He's good. Yeah, people love him for a good reason. He makes interesting movies and he executes them well. And even when Christopher Nolan makes a bit of people have been divided on Interstellar and Dunkirk, but they're interesting divided. It's not that they're just dull movies that you can't talk about. Even the people that don't like them have something to say about them. That's the sign of a great director. Pan-Apocalypse, which upcoming part of the MCU are you most looking forward to me? For me, it's Loki and Shang-Chi. Not Loki for me. No. So I put out videos answering those questions, so I don't even remember what I said inside of those videos. But so I have a pair of videos that I put out after Comic-Con that was ranking how excited I am. And so that will have my full answer on my excitement for what was announced as of Comic-Con. Just generically off the top of my head, I got to go back to my roots and say Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is probably the one on the table that I'm the most like, okay, that's the one. Of all this stuff, if I got to see the thing right now, what would I pick? I'd pick Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I think some people would be surprised that I would say that because I'm infamous for not liking Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 as much as some people. But that's all a misunderstanding of my perspective on it and the downside of the way most people hear my thoughts on Guardians Volume 2 is in the context of a ranking, where I'm trying to explain why it's low on a list of movies that I like. I do this, I talk Marvel, and a lot of you guys subscribe because of a Marvel ranking or something like that, because I love those movies. So being at the bottom of an MCU ranking doesn't mean I'm hating on you. It's not like, number 23 in my MCU ranking, like I hate that movie, it's an F. Like, it's not that at all. I think the MCU's quality, even for their bottom stuff, is quite high. So people take me putting Guardians Volume 2 at the bottom of my list, and they put the emotion that they put on the film at the bottom of their list on where I put Guardians Volume 2. And so they amplify my negative thoughts. Then, because people why don't you like this movie? It puts me in a corner where it's like, well, here's the things I didn't like about it. So I'm constantly saying all the things I didn't like about it, in which case people just see me talking negative about a movie that at the end of the day, I loved the first Guardians of the Galaxy, which is such a fresh movie that I would love to see a third one that gets me excited like the first one did. And they just made some decisions in the second one that I was not crazy about. It didn't diminish my excitement for a third film, but that's the one that I would say. Joey, I don't know if you addressed this, but thoughts on the Batman Jonah Hill villain rumors? Yeah, I haven't talked about any of that yet. What do I think about Jonah Hill? Maybe I just haven't seen enough of his dramatic stuff yet. I know that he's done a lot of it, and I've seen things here and there. My brain still just goes back to Superbad mode and the comedy and stuff like that. It's not even a lack of acknowledgement of his ability or anything like that. Just the way I see him, it's tough for me to imagine him as a villain. It's tough for me to imagine him as a guy that, like, oh, that guy's gonna bring fear to a city. I have a tough time seeing Jonah Hill in that light. So my first inclination, like, it's not one that I heard it and I went, oh yes, that's awesome. I love that's inspired. That's not the way I thought about that one. But there's a very long history of people being cast for roles in Batman movies and winning people over. So I certainly can be won over. I'm not cynical towards it. It's just not one that I immediately saw and went, yes, that's it. You cracked the code. I don't know. I'm not quite sure where I fall on it. David Patterson, while I don't like Disney's business model, I think the $25.75 deal for the upcoming Spider-Man movies is the best of the Spidey deals so far. Yeah, I mean, it seems to kind of average out everything being said and gives Disney more of what they probably, for the work they're doing, for the exposure, positive press that they bring, momentum that Sony gets to be a part of. 25's, Disney, it's Disney. They bring a lot to the table, so 25% doesn't sound crazy. And at the same time, Sony owns it, so keep majority. It feels right to me. David Patterson, do you think it is safe to talk about It Chapter 2 spoilers on the stream right now? No, everyone would have to say that they've seen It Chapter 2. I don't want to go into spoilers on here because I don't know who's in here, and some people aren't commenting, so I don't. If everyone says that we can do it, if everyone in the chat says we can do spoilers, we can do spoilers. I just don't want to. So people want to talk about spoilers in It Chapter 2. Go ahead and tell us if we can talk about spoilers. But I wouldn't. Probably most movies, anything that's a 2019 new release that's not on Blu-ray yet, I probably always say no unless the chat says yes. So tell us, chat. Pen and Block, do you read comics? Not as much as I'd like to. Because I get so busy, and I listen to and read a lot of nonfiction because I like to keep my brain nice and fresh. And then from time to time, I'll try and listen to, like right now, as I mentioned before, I'm listening to The Shining to try and get in preparation for new movies coming out. So I try and do things that keep my brain fresh and with new ideas and new ways to think and different perspectives that make me useful for what I do, for the reason you subscribe to my content, and how to do business better and lots of stuff like that. And since most modern comic book movies aren't normally based off the comics, it's just tough for me to make for them to come to the top priority. Like I have right here, this whole set of graphic novels right next to where I film. Sorry about that. It's like, okay, I don't know where we're going to put these. But at the same time, it's just having the right moment to sit down to read through them. Like I've wanted to go through Flashpoint for a long time and finally picked it up. I'll pull another one out. Picked it up a few months back and just haven't had the time to read any of it yet. So it's just a lot of stuff like that the right moment, the right time, it just doesn't happen. But a little bit, sort of, yes. Andy, hello. This is my first time in a while I've made it to one of these. Very cool. Nice to have you back. Andy, what do you think is the hardest part of the process of recording and uploading videos? Hardest part of the process of recording and uploading videos? I don't know, because every video is a lot of videos are very different. Everything about them, even about them, can be very entirely different. And the things that can disappoint and the expectations, it's just tough. Like I can tell you what's been tough this week. What's been really frustrating for me and not knowing what to do with this. But so I was at Fantastic Fest, and so I saw 20 movies no one else has seen. Some of them literally no one else has seen, and besides people at that film festival, and saw movies before came out and everything like that. So I want to talk about movies. That's what I want to do. And I'd like to be able to use my platform to introduce people to movies. So I put out my reviews of In the Shadow of the Moon, Netflix movie, saw it a few days early, and VFW, a movie that there's not even a trailer for this movie yet. That's how early I saw it. And each of these movies under 2,000 views, which a lot of context, that's a huge number for a lot of people, but for when you're trying to make a living on this, that's $6 or something. It's $5. And then I put out just kind of a little news video when the Spider-Man deal drops, and it gets 20,000 views. So 20 times as many, or 10 times as many views for a piece of news that anyone can read the article, anyone can watch someone else's video. That can be hard. That I want to do more to expose, introduce people to things, but the nature of how people click know what things are, they just don't. They see VFW, they don't know what that is. They see In the Shadow of the Moon, they don't know what that is, so they don't click on it. And if it's not linked up with someone else, something else, it just kind of disappears. And so then I want to talk about interesting things, new things, different things, something that no one else has talked about. No one else on YouTube has talked about, done a review for the movie VFW. No one else. I'm the first person to ever do that. Therefore, the video bombed, because no one knows what the movie is. That could be difficult, but that's kind of maybe probably different from the question that you're specifically asking. So I don't. I think probably the thing when the technical part of creating content, if that's maybe where you're going with the question, it's most difficult. I think is not saying the same things, finding continually coming up with new things to say. Especially when I put out a video every day, so 365 videos per year. More than that, really, because I'd probably average 8 or 10, plus do live stuff like this, other channels, the Amino app, Stardust a little bit. And when you do that, trying to come up with a new set of words. I don't know if it's even posted yet, but today I'm posting my Knives Out review, and I was just while editing, I was like, I said quirky too many times. I said quirky too much. I wish I hadn't said quirky so much. But like that's the word that came to mind to talk about it. If we're talking about Marvel movies, they're fun. So like I feel like right now I'm feeling a lot too repetitious in my vocabulary and the way I talk about things, and feeling I need to probably do a couple things to change things up, turn things upside down, maybe intentionally find some reviewers totally different from me, read some stuff, and just kind of refresh in my mind with my vocabulary, the things that I'm looking for, paying attention to, maybe change up the way I do my structure things to find a way to make sure that I'm not just saying the same things over and over again. So that's the one that's been on my mind as of recently, especially in this grind of doing it full time, is how do I keep things fresh? Editing, I don't love editing, but it's not the hardest part. I enjoy coming up with ideas and things like that. I think it is kind of that process of the coming up with writing new stuff, new ways to talk about movies. I think that's what it would be. David, I found a free audiobook for The Shining and I'm reading along to help me stay focused. David Patterson, I have not seen the movie, but I think Bright's premise is incredible. I've heard the execution is dreadful. Yeah, so I only watched it one time whenever it first came out, so almost 2 years ago. And the concept, concept didn't immediately make me go, oh, that sounds amazing. But David Ayer, Will Smith, Joel Edgerton, the crew kind of brought me into it. Yeah, it's one of those movies that for having such an odd concept that should pop, I just don't remember too much about it. I don't remember. It's just like, okay, this is like just more kind of a straightforward cop procedural. Even though there's fantasy creatures everywhere. So it's like you have this story that's so incredibly vibrant, and the concepts inside of it and these two genres that don't go together being squished together. This should be so much more interesting than it is. So that was my memories of it, but that, from a while ago. But yeah, the execution did not make an impression. Especially when you Will Smith. How do you Will Smith and it not make an impression? David Patterson, Knives Out just got a PG-13 rating. I don't know. Language would be the reason that language is the only thing in it that's kind of offensive. I mean, obviously there's some murder stuff inside of it and mild innuendo, but language would be the only thing. So, and it's not. There wouldn't be a reason for the movie to go for an R. I don't remember how bad the language got inside of it. But it's just not a movie that. It doesn't dwell in super adult places to where there'd be a reason to have that cutoff. And it's something that you could see teenagers enjoying. So I would think that they would want a PG-13. So that would make sense. So, David, are you going to do a Russo Brothers ranking after 21 Bridges comes out? Russo Brothers aren't directing 21 Bridges. So I wouldn't, if I was going to rank their movies, I would have done it after Endgame. It just didn't work out. So I'm not planning on doing a ranking like that because they're just not directing the movie. So, as soon as you do movies produced by, then it just gets a lot more complicated. And what does producer mean? I don't really know. So, I plan on watching it. Trailers has my attention, and then their involvement has my attention. But I don't have a ranking idea associated with that one at the moment. All right, we don't have questions. No one told me no or yes on this whole It Chapter 2 thing, so I don't know where it might change my mind on that one, what I plan on doing with that. If you can ask a question without explicitly spoiling the point in the question, I can probably do a good job to answer your question without spoiling whatever. Joey, how have things been going on with the plans to launch a podcast? I listened to the first episode you got out, really enjoyed it. Basically postponed indefinitely. Probably January is what I mean by that. So I wanted to launch this month. I whenever I announced it, I got excited. I was like, let me give myself at least over 2-month ramp up time. So middle of July, my mind was mid-September, and it wasn't a good idea. The timing. Podcast, still love the idea, still want to work on it, make that happen. So obviously this last week, as I mentioned in this live stream on all my media, I've been at Fantastic Fest. So basically the timeline that I had proposed or was thinking 2 months ago was, so I'll start a podcast and then 1 week later I'll disappear for 10 days at a film festival. Okay, that's stupid. That's not a good idea. So that's the first problem I ran into. Then I'm back now for another week and a half, and then I go to LA, or I go to California, San Diego, and then California. I go to California, starting with San Diego for a conference for a few days, and then I'm going to go to LA for about a week, just to see what happens. I don't know what'll come of it. I've got a number of YouTube friends out there, so maybe I'll meet some people. Maybe I'll just visit LA. I don't know, but so my proposed timeline for launching a podcast was right before a film festival and then right before this big trip to California. That's just terrible timing. It's a bad idea. And it's the sort of thing that if I'd launched it, I would have stressed myself trying to get the episodes out, or I would have just dropped the ball and fumbled the launch. With the size of channel I have now, I want to make sure whenever I launch the podcast, I launch it right. Because it's the sort of thing that people will check out. I have the potential to make a little bit of a ripple when I start, much more so than when I started my YouTube channel. I had just kind of 7 pre-existing subscribers on here, and then I bought a lot of burned bridges in real life. So I just had to start everything from scratch. I'm not starting from scratch. I have a built-in group of people that could help me launch this thing and make it go somewhere. So I want to do that right, and that also makes it very easy to have paralysis of analysis, because I'm trying to figure out, all right, if I want to launch this right from the get-go. I don't want to have a bunch of starts and stops. I want this to become a regular part of my thing. As soon as it launched, that's a weekly thing moving forward. But it's a lot more pressure when you know people are going to pay attention to it and you're doing something different. It's just a lot more pressure. So it takes time to figure out, how do I not just do Collider Live, John Campia's show, Movie Talk? How do I not just do what they're already doing? But at the same time, I don't have a second one of me that can write a bunch of new stuff. So those are all the thoughts kind of going into it. But so it's still on my mind, still writing ideas down whenever I can. I need to do more test runs on here is what I really would like to do. So, but I don't know, life keeps being busy. Like I wanted to do all that stuff, and then I was trying to finish the new office and everything, and then film. Life keeps happening. So I need to figure out a way to manage my time a little bit better. Anyway, lingering on stuff. Oh, did I miss a question in there? I think I did. Andy, do you struggle with your rating system? I'm starting to become less confident in mine. Oh, I hate my rating system. I hate rating movies, actually. I mean, most people do. Most people that have to, if you have a system where you have to give a score, you probably hate it. And people, my thought, what I want to do is I want to do my best to give people the information to make their own decision, if they want to make a decision based off what I'm saying. Since but people want to be reductionistic. They just care what that number is, that letter is, or whatever. They go, hey, well, why did you give this? What you gave this a B and this a B minus? How dare you? And they just, all they care about is that letter, and that's really frustrating to people like myself, like yourself, when you spend a bunch of time thinking about a movie, put a bunch of ideas together, and you talk about it for like 8 minutes, and then people want to boil it all down to a letter. And that letter can mean such wildly different things. So I went like a B minus on It Chapter 2, Which this is a movie with some fantastic acting, great production design, huge budget, a big, ambitious scale and size to it. But because of some decisions they made in the way the storytelling works, and I guess it goes back to the book where it has kind of like this very cyclical middle act, it just really bogged down to me where I was like, man, I just can't get as excited about this movie as I want to. It just was very frustrating. I left feeling frustrated because I really enjoyed parts of it, but that middle was so frustrating. So that's a B-. But I watched, Rambo Last Blood, which a lot of people watch it and be like, this is just Taken knockoff. This is just gratuitous. The first half is too slow. I left that movie feeling like, yeah, I got what I wanted out of that. I would have preferred if it wasn't a Rambo movie, but I got what I wanted out of it. So on a lot of levels, technical, a bunch of other things, the scope, the size, the difficulty of making it Chapter 2 versus Rambo Last Blood, It Chapter 2 is a much more difficult film to make, but at the end of the day, the one that I left feeling like I got what I wanted, this movie better accomplished what it was going for, was Rambo Last Blood. And I could, similarly, ones that I saw at the film festival that, just quirky little action, these little action movies that just delivered, horror action films. So rating systems, they create they're just frustrating for me. And so I tried to come up with a way to factor that in and have the letter and the number. And I'm probably going to drop that in January because it just, I don't feel to me that it's doing what I wanted it to do. Basically, when I created the kind of the charts and everything, I was actually hoping to have not even just the little moving bars, but I wanted to have it to be a full graph chart that you could look at it and visually represent kind of where this movie fell. And so you'd have movies that are, the Taco Bell movies, that they're not great movies, but they're very entertaining movies. And you have ones that are both great and entertaining. And then you have movies that are great, but they're not very rewatchable. And then movies that are bad. Then you have bad movies that are incredible. So I wanted to find a way to visually show the different ways that we enjoy movies, rather than just having this linear bar of like, where does it fall on this one system? Because it's not like that. It's not the way we watch movies. It's much more complex. We're three-dimensional in the way that we actually experience movies. So that's what I want to find a way to do, is have a three-dimensional way to talk about movies, which factors in how well is it made, how entertaining is it, how well does it accomplish, what is it, what's my personal feelings, all those different dimensions to the way we actually experience films. But I haven't found a way to do that doesn't feel like I'm giving a movie 5 scores. And I don't want to give a movie 5 scores. And if I gave a movie 5 scores, people would be like, can you just give me 1 score? Can you just average that out, what that means? And so then it would turn into 1 score again. So there's a very long answer to your question to say that I do not like rating systems. I haven't found something that I like. And so I'm probably going to just drop down to just doing letters soon. If I can find a way to, maybe I give a letter, but then I have a visualization of where it kind of, this is an A, but this A falls in this quadrant. That's what I visually, a visual way to think about movies that moves people out of just linear. That's what I want to find a way to do. I don't think a letter and a number does that. So anyway, there's a whole bunch of different stuff. One person's okay with spoilers. Jackson, sorry I'm late. How dare you be late? Jackson, the Off-Season 2 Racing was great. My favorite episode of the series is Email Surveillance. I was glad to see it is high on your list. Yeah, it's a great one. A lot of little things in there, important little moments inside of it. And this what's fun about the show, The Office, is that that's not a flashy episode at all. Like some of the improv stuff is kind of big comedy stuff, but it's not a flashy episode that has the big gigantic moments, but it can still be someone's favorite because it has so many great little jokes inside of it and character moments that can make the non-flashy episode favorite. Like a lot of people say the Super Bowl episode, the one that kicks off with the fire drill and then cutting off the face a few minutes into it. A lot of people, it's the best episode. And those ones to me aren't quite as interesting because it's just so flashy over the top in the way it does it. Of course, it's hilarious, but it's the smaller stuff that is what makes me really enjoy the show. Mom Star and Monsters, do you watch Mojo? Any plans to work with Austin Burke again? I don't really watch Mojo. I've seen some of their stuff. So I don't want to suggest I've never heard of them. No, I mean, I've watched some of their stuff and it shows up in my feed and things like that. So when there's one that, that looks interesting, I'll watch it. But I don't have like a regular series on their channel that I regularly watch that I can think of. I couldn't list off which types of things that they do, though I'm sure I've watched many of them. Any plans to work with Austin Burke again? We don't actually have any plans at the moment. We just don't have an idea. I've just been busy. I'm traveling soon, so I haven't been thinking about something. I try for that first 6 months that I was full time. I was really proactively trying to do collaborations and appear on podcasts and stuff like that. And so I kind of get to a point in time where I was a little bit like, okay, I need to stop pursuing this because I'm doing too much of this. And especially because I was doing so many of these little collaborations, and then people were like, you should collaborate more. I was like, okay, my strategy here is probably not doing what I was hoping it would do or whatever. And so I backed off a little bit. It maybe need to be a little bit more intentional which ones I select. So, but I'm sure we'll do stuff again. We just need the right idea. So, whenever I did the collaboration I did with him, we talked for probably an hour before and after the time we were out talking on camera, like an hour total of just us chatting, talking movies, talking YouTube and stuff like that. So it was pretty cool, real nice guy. And I tend to see a lot of the people that do what I do, we kind of have certain personality similarities so we tend to, whenever we start talking to do a collaboration, sometimes we just end up talking for a long time. Oh, Jackson, tell us about your interaction with Stuckman, please. So, there's nothing really that would be interesting inside of it to share. It's these intimate. There's certainly no secrets to share or anything like that, or it's not like we talked about anything that you'd be, oh wow, that's. The way it played out is that I walked into the theater, and it was pretty thin at the point in time I got in. And the way at the film festivals, it loads in groups. You're in groups A through E and then Z. And so A people go in and there's no one in there. B's go in, there's a few. I was a B, I guess he was an A. So I walk in, go to sit at my seat, and I look back behind me, and he's just there on this empty row. So I literally start doing that sort of stuff. And so he kind of looks up and he goes, hey, you mentioned on Twitter that if you saw you here, say hi, and I told you I'd say hi. And he goes, oh, hey, man. And I go, hey, do you mind if I sit next to you? Oh, sure, go for it. So I sat next to him, and so he was like, hey, what have you seen? And so we just started talking about movies that we'd seen at the festival. And I just worked a red carpet. I don't remember. I don't think I came straight from the red. Oh, yeah, I did. I think I went. No, I went. I just watched In the Shadow of the Moon, where I'd worked the red carpet that Michael C. Hall, Boyd Holbrook were on it. And so I just I'm already on this day where my heart's pounding because I'm working red carpet. So I've never done that before. It's all kind of new for me. And I sit down, I've still got my camera and everything like that. So I'm just talking about the festival. So I'm actually doing some press stuff here. Actually, so I'm telling him, I've started a YouTube channel a while back, and it's pretty cool. I've started some success and got to work a red carpet. And so he says, yeah, I'm pretty sure I've almost positively seen a few of your videos. After where I do a review, I just look to see what else is out there and what other people have done. And I've definitely seen your thumbnails, and then pretty sure I've watched some of your videos. Like, oh, really? And so, we talked some YouTube, talked the film festival, but there's not a, I mentioned my set, I looking like his, and he's like, it's a bookshelf. People act like only one person can have bookshelves and only one person can have a thumbnail design. Who cares? And he goes, if you started doing hilariosity reviews, then we'd have a problem. That's my content, but thumbnail designs, set designs, there's only so many things you could do. So of course some people's stuff's going to look similar. So that's kind of the stuff we talked about. And then, after the movie, I wanted to make sure that he talked about his 10-year anniversary video, how he tried to kind of open some doors for YouTube critics. So afterwards, I tried to be sure, hey man, I just want to make sure I thanked you. Not, he also bought my drink. He bought my drink. So I was like, I'll have a Coke, and he goes, put that on my tab. And so he just bought my drink. So we had dinner and a movie. So a great first date. But, so I thank him. It was I've been able to go full time on YouTube. You mentioned trying to open doors, validity, and like I guess I'm the beneficiary of that. Like I don't know how directly, indirectly, but I can say that the path was much easier for me because of what you did. But you set the example, everything you did. And I just want to say thank you for that. And he's like, oh, cool, and he's like, thank you for continuing and continue to do what you do and be a part of legitimizing it yourself. Like, oh, thank you. So, then I was like, hey, can we take a picture? That's what it was like. I mean, that for 25 minutes. There's more stuff in there, but nothing particularly interesting. That was the interesting tidbits. But so anyway, there's my conversation, my meeting up with Chris Stuckman. Bombstar and Monsters. I'm not over the destruction you left at the Fantasy Football Massacre last week. Man, I legitimately, I got destroyed on fantasy football the first 3 weeks. I'm in 3 different leagues, 2 with the Patreon and then 1 with people from real life. And I just was getting killed. And so I hadn't even checked. I didn't know I was winning until I saw your tweet. And then I saw your tweet and I was like, oh, I guess I'm having a good week. Because I was at the film festival, just all sorts of stuff was going on. So I wasn't even thinking about it. I was like, okay, I got destroyed enough that I don't have to feel too bad about this one. Because, man, I had a bunch of bad weeks right there in a row. Jackson, maybe this sounds bad and I don't mean it to be insulting, but so many other movie reviewers, I will skip their reviews to see their rating, but I don't really pay attention to it as much. More interested in hearing what you have to say about it. Its rating doesn't matter. The dialogue, insight you give, it does. And to my point before, I wouldn't take that as insulting, because actually, to tie back to Chris Stuckman, I'll tie several thoughts back. I remember a couple years back watching some of his reviews. I got to the point in time where I watched everything he said about it, and I was really good at guessing what he would score it. And I thought that was a really good thing. I thought that's a good sign. He's gotten to a great place in what he's doing, that he can articulate himself so clearly that people can guess what he's about to score it. And I don't think I'm there yet, not by a long shot. I don't perceive of myself that people could do that. And some of that's the complexity of multiple scores and things like that. But I would like to get to a point in time where I articulate myself so well that people can guess my score. I thought that was a really nice, that's a interesting, it's not objective, but a good goal to have for what I'm trying to do. And I need to make more intentional about doing things to make that happen. But at the same time, if you just watch what I have to say and my insights, my thoughts on it, that's the meat of what I'm talking about. There's a lot of things that can be frustrating when you do movie review stuff. So a lot of times I'll post my review, and I mean, I say the overall, I say the entertainment, and then at the bottom I put my recommendation. And if my recommendation is a little bit more ambiguous, then I'll keep talking afterwards. Like, this movie is for action fans. If you go in expecting this, you probably won't get it. But if you're wanting this is for you. Like, I'm trying to make the recommendation to the person who will probably like the movie. I am over-explaining who this movie is for and giving too many scores for it. And then in the comment section, yeah, but should I go see it? I wasn't clear. What? I'm not going to give one answer. Like, I'm not interested in that. That's not how humans work. Different people have different opinions. Different people like different things. So I'm going to give as many answers I need to give so that I can try and help the right people see the movie and get excited about it. But, so the idea that someone wouldn't pay attention to my scores at the end, I kind of like that. Unless at the end they say, okay, I heard everything you said. It's really interesting. Should I go see it? Like, I don't know you. I don't know if you should see it. That's why I said all the other stuff, so that you can decide. David Patterson, I'll try to avoid spoilers, but my problem with It Chapter 2 was not at all the runtime. It was Mike. I found him unlikable. I thought Ben was kind of ignored. I actually preferred the movie's ending over the books. Interesting. I don't think I've heard anyone have that particular issue before, so I wouldn't know specifically where you're going through. And I haven't read the book, so I don't know what the ending to the book is to know the difference or anything like that. But yeah, so I don't. It's tough to say without knowing which comparisons you're going for. But Jackson, Scooby-Doo turned 50 recently. In honor of that, can you do a quick off the top of your head ranking of the 5 Mr. Inc. members? Nope. No, I mean, I don't. I mean, no. I don't have I don't have anything on my head at all. I don't. I mean, Shaggy and Scooby are the two most fun, and the other three are just the other three. I don't have an opinion on them. Um, so that maybe that's the best I could do. I really don't have a ranking of the Scooby Doo characters from of course, watched tons of cartoons. I watched the first movie of the live action. I didn't watch the second one. I don't think James Gunn wrote those. But yeah, I don't have a ranking of Scooby Doo stuff. Jackson, do you have any good quitting stories? No, because I haven't really quit any jobs. I've been fired and resigned and all sorts of things, but I don't have quitting stories. So no, I don't have a long work history either. Because I've stayed places long periods of time and then build up a great reputation, and then it all implodes at some point in time over something. So, I don't have good quitting stories. Jackson, I know you don't typically watch trailers unless you're reacting to them. If they preface a movie you're watching, but Robert Pattinson seems menacing in The Lighthouse. I haven't seen the trailer for The Lighthouse. I've seen the movie The Lighthouse. I watched it this week at Fantastic Fest. So, yeah, I don't know what you saw in the trailer, but I've seen the entire movie. So, yeah, I mean, the performances are great inside of it, and he's crazy. Everyone's kind of crazy on their little stuck on their island. So, yeah, but yeah, I've seen The Lighthouse. Momstar and Monsters, do you ever do a video for Valerian? If not, what are your thoughts? My daughter and I were excited for it, and when we were so disappointed she wanted to walk out. She wants to know what you think. Yeah, almost positive I have a review up on it. Almost positive I have a review of it on it. I definitely watched it in the theater. Yeah, I was really disappointed. Luc Besson used to be one of the greats, and then it just seems like he's who knows what. But I know it seemed like a movie that was way more interested in creating weird creatures and the design of things than it was in the story. It's like if you put half as much energy into making the story interesting as you did into all this other stuff, things would have gone much better. So I like case in point, it felt to me the movie had this much plot, and then they just kind of squeezed in these little side adventures that didn't really have anything to do with this main storyline. And so then they're trying to drive from here to here. That's the main plot line, and then something happens to where they get knocked off, and so then they have this whole other side adventure that has nothing to do with it because they just needed more runtime. But it was just forced in there. There's no reason that all that adventure happened other than we need more runtime inside of our movie. So it felt like you had a 40-minute episode of Valerian, the TV show, was our main plot line, and then they put a second episode of Valerian, the TV show, squished right there in the middle to give us a full runtime. So very weird. So I left very disappointed in being one of those movies. It wasn't even one that a lot of times with movies like that, I'll watch them a second time at home with my wife. Like, here, check this one. What did you think about this one? That one, I didn't even bother to do that. It was just, okay, that happened. Jackson, do you think the fact that Tom Hanks looks nothing like Mr. Rogers will be a distraction in Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood? So I finally watched the trailer for that one just this past week. While being at a film festival, I still went to the movies 3 times outside of the film festival. But so I finally saw the trailer for it this week, and it was a bit jarring at first. When you start watching it and it's like that's so distinctly Mr. Rogers and that's so distinctly Tom Hanks, that was kind of distracting. But I mean, as it goes along, you get absorbed in the ride. So I think the jarringness of something like that normally disappears if it's done well. Like a bad accent is jarring when you first hear it and you never stop hearing the bad accent. But a good performance, you get swept into the ride. You get eventually the movie making takes over and you just buy into the story. So I could potentially see that one I can see that happening. That I would imagine that's what'll happen. That'll just at first be like, what? And then once kind of figure out jump onto the ride of the narrative, then I'll be fine. Jack said, apparently Adam Sandler is getting Best Actor buzz for his performance in Uncut Gems. Would you like to see him get acting recognition that isn't a Razzie? What's his best performance so far? Absolutely. I don't know what happened to him. I don't know if he had mob trouble, gambling debts, or what. But 15 years ago, he was on the path to be one of these comedic actors that transitions to being a dramatic actor, the Robin Williams path. And then it was just, and it was getting good buzz. I mean, Punch Drunk Love, people were raving about him. And, P.T. Anderson and a couple others in there. And then it was just like he went back. He just went back to doing what he'd been doing before. And comedy is a very fickle thing. What's hilarious now won't be hilarious 10 years from now. It changes dramatically. And that's where you watch, especially now with how quickly cultural sensitivity is shifting, and comedy is all about going up to edges and poking fun at things. When you have 10 years pass and cultural sensitivity is one of the big shifts in that 10 years, comedy does not age well in that regard, and a style of comedy just doesn't work the same as it used to. And then you have Adam Sandler making the same types of comedies that he was doing 20 years ago, but it doesn't work when you're he did the man-child thing for so long, which is funny when you're 30 and you're doing the man-child. Like, this guy didn't grow up, and he's like yelling and screaming and acting like a little kid, throwing tantrums. But when you're 50 and you do that, it's scary. It stops being funny anymore. You're too old to do that. So the shtick doesn't really work, and he does a lot of funny voices that aren't funny at all, and doing these accents and stuff that just don't work. I don't get it. I don't know why he did that. He was on the path to being something else, and then just went backwards and made really bad versions of all that stuff. So best performance, I'm not really a best person to select that sort of thing. And Punch Drunk Love was one that comes to mind, but you're just talking acting performance. But I think The Wedding Singer is his best movie. He's great in that, as he does drama, and he's really funny, and he's charming, and he's likable, and he's broken, but he's hopeful and optimistic. He's all kinds of different things. So I'll go with The Wedding Singer. Jackson, here's the thing. I agree that I can predict Stuckman's ratings, same as John's, but there's sometimes why I skip to the end because it coincides so closely with what they say on their videos. If the score is less predictable, then you're more invested in hearing what they actually say rather than being able to easily decipher from the rating if I should see it, especially when we share similar tastes like Stuckman and I do. Yeah, I mean, I've thought about some of that, I just remember that being a neat experience when I discovered that about my ability to interpret Stuckman videos. I thought that was a neat thing. But then I've had the thought, a big part of what my channel does is the intrigue of what's coming next. I mean, that's what I built my channel on, ranking videos. The entire appeal there is, okay, where's he going to put it? What's next? What's going to be number one? What's going to be last? That intrigue is my entire channel. And that was not unintentional. I was aware of the fact that that's part of what makes it interesting to talk about, what makes it fun to watch, what makes it a little bit enticing. So to that point, maybe there's value in the fact that I try and say a lot of things in my videos, and then at the end, it kind of wraps it all up with a summary statement and my score. Maybe that is an interesting thing. I don't know. I think about that stuff all a lot. David Madison, I don't know if this applies to anyone else, but I cannot get myself to pause movies. Interesting. I have kids, so I have to pause movies all the time, and a wife that'll be cooking and in and out. So pausing movies in our house is almost just kind of a must. Momstar and Monsters. What movies have you seen and have you left most confused? Magnolia. Around the time that it started raining frogs. That was pretty weird. The Lighthouse, one from this past week that we just talked about. That's one that leaves you unclear on what happened. There's some ambiguity inside of it, and you go, what did that mean? I wonder what that meant. So that one left me a little confused. Mulholland Drive. That was from a while back. David Lynch. And I went in that, I didn't see it. I didn't know what the movie was, and was watching it. Okay, this is kind of weird. And then at like 60% of the way through it, it just goes off the cliff. I mean, into bonkers. And it's like fairly normal narrative for the first 60%, and then the last 40%, it becomes very dream-esque. Like you're watching it, and then it just transitions into a dream, and in the way it tells stories, and like two people are talking, and then it's a different person, and then it goes back to this person, and they're in a different place, and just trippy stuff. That one was confusing. Those are the ones that come to mind, but they're all ambiguous films. Is probably the big thing on them. Jackson, what advice would you give someone who's struggling to figure out what they want to pursue career-wise? That's always a tough one because there's so many different things that factor into that as to whether you have a. So like the guy that I went to the film festival with is a top fraud analyst for Apple. And he's wondering what he wants to do. Like, he's at the top of his field, wildly successful, doing very well financially, and wondering what he wants to do with the rest of his life. That's one way. Or you could be 25, don't have a college degree, and don't know what you want to do with your life. Or you can be 25, have a college degree, and you realize, I don't like my degree at all, and I don't know where, like, I'm in debt. This is how I can get a job, but I do not want a job doing the thing that I just spent a lot of money to learn how to do. So it's tough to say because there could be a lot of things, or there can be like my situation where I was very good at a job, but it was a job that was very toxic for me for years. That is just, there's a lot of things about it that's very good at it, and people thought I was doing a good job, but it just took such a toll on me that it destroyed me. So there's a lot of different ways that you can interpret some of this stuff, what career paths and things like that. In general, I don't know. You have to know what you want in life. Like, what is your dream in life? To retire young? Is it to have a fancy car and a big house? Or is it just like, I'm not really interested in a bunch of material stuff. Like, I just need a place to live and to be able to buy movies and go to the movies I want and have the ability to enjoy all of that. I'm not looking to have a bunch of big flashy stuff. So how much money do you need to make? Then you have to look at what do you enjoy doing? What would be satisfying for you? And what would you be okay with doing? And you start to like draw comparisons between all of this. And then you look at what can you actually do? Like some people, you don't need a job that satisfies them. Like they just go to their job and they're fine with that because they have other things in life that give them satisfaction. So, like I'm very much church world, so a bunch of people, they just have, they work at Dell, they work at GM, something like that. Like, it's just a way to make a lot of money. And then the thing where they feel they make a contribution to mankind is through helping people through church world. And other people volunteer in different places in different directions and things like that. But their job that's just where their money comes from. That's what they do 40 to 60 hours per week. And then they find satisfaction in what they do when they get home. Other people find satisfaction through work. So you need to know that about yourself. Is that, do you need to find a job that gives you satisfaction, or you just need a job that provides enough money to meet your bills? So you have to, there's a lot of different things that kind of factor into all of that. You factor into that, if a spouse is in the mix and what they bring to the table and what they want as well. So, like for us, what we've discovered recently is my wife having her current job is a great thing. For years, she thought she just wanted to stay-at-home mom, but there wasn't enough. There wasn't that thing that kind of filled it. There was still a hole there, and having the job has filled that in, plus provided a bunch of money that has made it much easier for me to go full-time. So there's a lot of those things you have to consider as to what they could do. So I don't necessarily have a piece of advice other than really define what you want in life and what you need in life. Do you need the fancy car, or do you fine with a old car? Like part of the reason that I'm able to do what I do is because I'm fine with the fact that my car's 12 years old. I have no plans to upgrade or anything like that. I'm fine with my house being a little bit disheveled. So I just don't worry about a lot of that stuff. I just put my time into this. I don't need the big fancy anything. So I can just invest everything I did to take the chance on all this. So define all that for yourself. Okay, I guess this will be our last question on here. Close out. We're at an hour, and I gotta get to a birthday party for a 1-year-old. Jackson, since Sony wants to make a Kraven the Hunter movie, which of these two do you think would be better casting, Gerard Butler or Jeffrey Dean Morgan? I'd be excited about either one. I honestly don't have I wouldn't have a strong preference between either one of them. I really like both of them. I really want both of them to be successful, get more work. Both of them, for different reasons, feel like they're kind of a similar kind of place when it comes to fame and big franchise type stuff. You know, Gerard Butler's probably the bigger name just because of his past movie success, and Jeffrey Dean Morgan's like the up and coming guy that hasn't seemed to have had as much success with leading movies, but he's been in a bunch of stuff, so he has like nerd cred. Whereas Gerard Butler's made some movies that have kind of burned some of his nerd cred. So both of them, I feel I would be happy if they got something that kind of, got them back on the main stage and everything like that. So I really don't have a preference between the two of them because I really enjoy both of them. So there you have it. Thank you guys. Thank you so much for listening to me talk about movies, asking questions, supporting the channel via Patreon, all that fun stuff. We got a big week planned. The next 8 days, my schedule for the next week is pretty crazy. So I'm pretty pumped about everything I'm posting this week, and I'll be very, very super duper busy. Hence why this podcast keeps getting delayed. But thank you much.